Welcome to the Vantage West Cybersecurity podcast, your front line for staying informed, alert, and one step ahead of today's digital threats.
Hi, welcome back to Cybersecurity Awareness Month. These videos are designed to help provide some guidance on cybersecurity hygiene. My name is Jim Jenkins. I'm the VP of Information Security at Vantage West Credit Union. And I'd like to welcome Jerry Keeley from CISA to help us with these conversations. Welcome, Jerry.
Thank you, Jim. My name is Jerry Keeley. I work for CISA, which is the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency of the Department of Homeland Security. That's why we call it CISA, because that's a mouthful. I've been with CISA for a couple of years. I'm a cybersecurity advisor. And prior to that, though, I was the Chief Information Security Officer for Pinal County Government and retired after 17 years there. So been a member of the cyber community, the IT community, and I've lived in Tucson, Arizona for over 35 years now.
That's awesome. So you've been working to build resilience into the Tucson community for quite a while.
Oh, yes, sir. Absolutely.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for the work that you're doing on that. Today, we're going to be talking a little bit about software updates on your devices. So the first question that I would have for you, Jerry, is what's the biggest misconception people have around software updates?
They're going to break stuff. Okay. And that's a partial misconception, because in some cases it really does. They just think, I'll just do automatic updates. The update comes in and something breaks. But the misconception is that if I just leave it alone and I don't change anything, it'll just work forever. Well, the problem is these updates are coming out for a reason. Oftentimes it's because they've been breached. A vulnerability has been exposed or exploited in them. Oh. And so these are patches to help keep you safer. So getting these patches in is really important. But here's something that is not commonly practiced, but we do try to suggest, is please consider reading what the release notes are. What did they do to this patch? What did they do to the software? Why would you be interested in doing it? If it's a security thing, you definitely want to get it sooner than later. If it's features or functions, you can decide whether or not those are features or functions that you want. But also, one of the other things that you really want to be concerned with is when you download or update an app specifically. I'm really kind of focusing on your apps on your phones and things. Is sometimes the vendors will turn features on that you didn't mean for them to be on. That's one of the problems. So they might turn on, give it access to your contacts or to your photos or your location services or things that you really didn't intend for them to be able to do. So that second suggestion is patch your software, make sure you get your security updates, make sure you're secure, but take a moment and look at the settings after you've done an update. So if you don't feel like reading the release notes to find out what it's going to do for or against you, you also will want to take a time and make sure that the settings are where you think they should be.
Yeah, and those settings will typically change with new releases of software, of an app, because they're trying to add some new capabilities, some new functionality. So they're not trying to be deceptive in the way that they're doing it, but in general, they might be asking for a little bit more data. Maybe their location, they want to go more precise on it, or maybe they want to be able to provide notifications and they just enable it. So that's a great recommendation. Why are software updates so important to overall cybersecurity?
Because every day, all the time, these cyber criminals are trying to find vulnerabilities. And there's no such thing as a perfectly secure application out there. And these criminals, they're very motivated. They're driven by money. They're usually well-funded. And so they're very motivated in figuring out ways they can get to us in any way, shape, or form. And generally, the way we can be gotten is through our applications, through software vulnerabilities. And so they try to leverage those vulnerabilities and use them against us.
Got it. So the hackers, if you will, or in some cases fraudsters, they would typically take a look at a vulnerable piece of software, write a hack against that software, and then run it on a whole bunch of different devices with the hopes of finding one that's vulnerable. And so the way that you protect yourself against that really is update your software.
Absolutely, because they once they find a vulnerability, the hacker community is they're very integrated. They share a lot of information with each other, and so they have these websites on the dark web where they share information. Once somebody gets a hold of it, an enterprising thief, if you will take that and they will plug that into a computer program, and that computer program they'll run 24/7 looking for the appearance of that particular application and that version out there in the wild. And once they find it, then they'll have another program that will jump in and do whatever they could do against you with it.
Right. So it's definitely an ongoing process that needs to happen. A lot of devices enable automatic updates. Are automatic updates to your software always a good thing?
No. So like I'd mentioned earlier, is if it turns features on that you weren't aware of and it automatically updates tonight, and tomorrow morning now it has access to location services, your photos, your contacts, and things like that could be misused. And it doesn't mean the company that's loading the software is misusing them, but somebody that can control that software or knows how to move the levers of that software can access that information.
Got it.
So being aware about what you're putting on your device is always the better option. And also just so that you do take a moment to read what are the release notes, what's it going to do, and then you can pay attention to it. When you go through and look at it, you know what you've updated. Now go look at the settings of that. If you do an auto update, something just drops on your computer or usually your phone, you wouldn't know and you wouldn't even think to go look at it.
Yeah. So this is an activity that I think the audience should take part in. Take a look at your phone. And before you look at all of the apps that are on it, guess how many applications you have on your phone and write it down, and then go in and look for how many applications you have installed and how many of those applications are you still using. I think that's a really good exercise to do. I think you'll be surprised the number of applications that you have on your phone that you think are on your phone versus the actual number is probably way off, unless you're very focused on cybersecurity, which thumbs up for that. As you're thinking about updates, and we're bringing this back to sort of the family, how do we teach kids to make sure that their phones or their tablets or things like that are updated? Do you have any guidance for parents as they're thinking through this process? How do I build resilience into my children for things like cybersecurity hygiene with updates?
Sure. So one idea might be to have a scheduled family security day, security hour, something like that, where it's basically everybody knows that that's when we're going to pull out our devices, we're going to look for updates. And one of the other pieces that we generally neglect is all of the IoT. Okay, these devices that are on the internet, like your camera, your refrigerator, your Nest thermostat, could be your dryer. All these things that we got by now are smart. And most people don't think about going and patching those. You have these devices that are available through the internet, and you don't run firmware updates or patches to those things. And over time, they get vulnerable as well. And they're not set it and forget it. You go and you put them in, change the password off default. That's step number one. But then have a periodic change cycle that you do. And that'd be another thing for the viewers here is you mentioned looking up the apps. That's something that falls through the cracks a lot. If you get, let's say you've got a Ring camera, okay? Well, a new one come out, right? So you want the new one. You buy the new one and you load that app. Do you remember to go and uninstall the app from the old one? Or is that still residing on your device, okay? But now that you have this device, it's exposed on the internet, you need to really take an inventory about what items can get on the internet. And my suggestion, it's hard to buy something that's not smart anymore because everything has to be smart. But if you buy something that has all the features, functions, colors, everything you're looking for, but you don't think that you don't want to take on the exposure, the vulnerability by exposing it to the internet, simply don't connect it to your internet, right?
Sure.
If you don't give it access, then you've limited your exposure, and really think through about what you want to access from the internet, because you realize when you're accessing it, you're giving the ability for criminals to access it as well. So
Sure.
think that one through.
Yeah. So let's go into that just a little bit. When you say you give access to criminals, I mean, what bad things can happen? As an example, if I leave my refrigerator software unpatched, unupdated, what are the sorts of things that hackers can do with that to impact me within my home?
So there's lots of different things. First of all, most of these things connect through Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi is simply a radio signal that can be picked up. And so somebody literally around the corner in your neighborhood could be in a car with a laptop and be able to access these devices, or fly a drone over your house with an antenna on there and be able to access that. Another thing that we find a lot is some of the lower end devices like smart light bulbs, they actually broadcast your Wi-Fi password in the air in plain text. So literally a drone or a person driving by, somebody sniffing your neighborhood, is going to be able to collect your Wi-Fi password. So now they can sit around the corner and they can actually get into your Wi-Fi, and they can actually access every device connected to in your home. And that's even the devices that aren't exposed to the internet, because they can go through, and because they have access to your Wi-Fi, they become part of your network and they're on your network. So they're able to, exploit those things. And, it's hard to think, what can I do to, so I do have an example. So your Nest thermostat, okay? You want to adjust your thermostat on the way home. It's Arizona, it's always very warm, so we want to get it cool before we walk into our furnace of a home in the summer, right? So, but you don't want to run the AC all day, so it's a great feature to have. Well, if somebody gets into that, think about this. If they got into your Nest, what if they decided to turn the heater on, change the admin password, and lock you out of your Nest? You are now going to the hardware store and picking up a $250 thermostat again to replace it, because they just made it, just ruined it.
Yeah, I'm thinking about that, and I'm also thinking about, as an example, automated locks on your front door. Once you're logged into, let's say, the refrigerator, you have access into the internal network in your home, and that is something that could very easily be exploited. Opening up the the lock on the front door is a relatively easy hack, if you will, something you definitely don't want. So it is important. Totally agree. It's important to make sure that all of the devices that you have, not just your phones and your tablets and your laptops and that sort of thing, but also all of the different devices. You said IoT before, and that stands for Internet of Things.
Yes, sir.
So it'd be all of those things that that you bring into your home to make your life easier. Your personal assistants, whichever version you're using, your locks, your television, even to a certain extent. Those are all things that need to be updated. So this is great advice, Jerry. Really appreciate you coming in to help the Tucson area, the community, to build better resilience. So thank you for doing that. Thank you for joining us today. We'll be coming out with other versions of this podcast on different topics. So come back each week and take a look at the website, vantagewest.org //security. And we'll post them there, and this will all go out on social media. So make sure that you check the show notes for this particular podcast. If we have other links that might be of help, we'll put those in the show notes. But thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.